This should work. There it goes. Welcome, everybody, to the Making Awesome podcast, take 2, because we definitely didn't already do an intro, and it definitely didn't get messed up. We are here, it's episode 185, hanging out with Positron3D. Mr. Nomad is here. Say hi to the folks at home, sir.
Hello, everybody.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I have you as Positron. I guess I need to flip you over, don't I?
I gotta put in my American camera.
Yeah, I got to put on that American camera. All right, fine. I guess I'll make it right. I thought it would be fun just to leave you this way because you know what? It's just fun, but yeah, all right, fine. I'll make it right. We are here with Nomad and Positron3D talking all about, doing stuff upside down and ultra portability and fitting an entire freaking 3D printer into a filament box. If you are joining us live, thank you. Thank you for showing up. Say hi in the chat, like, subscribe, all those things. And if you're listening back audio only, you should be joining us live. We go live pretty much every Sunday at noon. That time is subject to change. We got some awesome people here hanging out. We got Max H, Mad Cat USA, Zolon is here as well. Mr. Chris Catlit, I see Tarsman is here. Amber is here. Thank you all for showing up. Nomad, I feel like you've watched at least 1 or 2 of my interviews. So do you know the question I'm going to ask you right now?
It's no.
Can you give me the Backstreet Boys?
Ain't nothing but a heartache.
Hey, whoa, can't go more than 7 seconds. We'll get demonetized. No, I need the who you are, the where you from, the what you did, and as long as you love me. That's what I need.
No, yeah, so I am Nomad. I am the general manager or CEO of the Positron project, whatever title you want to give me.
Mm-hmm.
I have been doing this for past 2.5, almost 3 years now. And, we met back in East Coast Rep 2022. And, yeah, it's been quite a wild ride.
Nice. So, how did you get involved with all of this?
I kind of stumbled into it, which I think is the funniest part. I learned about the positron just like everyone else did, just browsing 3D printing stuff on YouTube, and found this weird upside down printer from this guy named Kralin. And I was like, wow, that's neat. I commented on his video and he loved my post. I'm like, woo, like, got a little starstruck there. And that's how I started. I was a moderator and a helper in an Ender 3 community Discord that was focused around helping people with their Ender 3s and other Ender printers. Kralin enters our server one day and he asks us, hey, I'm about to release this thing. Any of you guys can help me with this, hopefully? And everyone's like really hesitant. They're like, oh, this is going to be huge. I don't think I can handle that. Me? I was like, sure, why not? So he brought me on.
You literally play this industry as send it and I'll figure out the extra stuff later.
Exactly. I figured, you know what? I moderate Discords. I know what I'm doing. I'm in IT, so I know how to manage system services. I know what I'm doing here, at least to some degree. I think I am. And yeah, I just said, screw it, let's go. Once I got into the server, once I started talking to him more, I started to really realize exactly what it was he was about to do and just how bad it was going to go without any help. Essentially, his plan was to just drop the project on GitHub and leave it at that.
Mic drop on GitHub and then walk away.
Exactly. And I'm like, all right.
Oh, that means no one's going to see it, right?
Oh, no, people are going to see it. The problem is no one's going to be able to support and maintain it. That was the problem.
Okay.
So, because with these projects on GitHub, like, people will, submit the repo, and then they just don't maintain it.
Right.
It will just die. And I will say that has happened to the Positron V3 because we've been working so hard on it and it's just been a complicated mess. So The Positron V3 repo is deprecated now. We don't update it. We're not going to update it. All the links on it point to the new stuff. But
Smart.
yeah, so Kralin was just gonna drop this and run kind of thing. I convinced him not to. I convinced him, no, we gotta actually set this up. We gotta support the community
Right.
so that if you want this to be something that becomes its own thing, it can. Otherwise, it's just gonna be a weird little printer that existed on the internet at one point. So I went from being the moderator to being the business manager, helping him register patents and stuff like that, and just getting this small business set up. So we formed Positron3D for managing the project as a whole and
Right.
whatever comes in the future. So we moved everything to Positron3D, all ownership, etc. And it's a good thing we did that because Kralin was offered a job. And he talked to me about it. It was a very lucrative offer.
He was made an offer he
However-
couldn't refuse, literally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The downside being we both knew that if he accepted it, he would no longer be able to work on the project, at least directly.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him to take it because he'd be stupid if he didn't.
Right.
So Kralin has been working at this company for the past couple years, and he's been a consultant still on the project. So he's not gone. He just can't be the public face. He can't be actively participating because of non-disclosure, non-compete agreements. We're
Which-
hoping with recent
Yeah, the new
laws,
FTC stuff, that might be changing some things, but that's a soon TM.
yes,
right,
I
definitely
want my
assumed
crazy
to.
engineer back.
You know, part of, and I think a lot of people have amazing ideas and they want to see them succeed, but they don't often understand what it takes to get from this printing upside down could work, and if we folded it, it could viably fit into a filament box, to actually making it. But making one is a little bit different than making 10,000 of them.
Exactly. So we started out with the original design, which used synchro mesh, because that's just what we had available to us.
They're cool, by the way.
What?
Synchro mesh belts, super
Yeah.
cool.
But they're made by one company,
Yeah.
very hard to source and very expensive. They were
Yeah.
great for our prototype unit to just have something that worked for us. But when we went to try and mass manufacture it with LDO, we all were like, no. After a year of testing, said, we're throwing this out. Like, this is not good. We're going to do this completely differently, or at least somewhat differently. And we're going to make it good for a mass market.
Now,
So
I want to put a statement here, right? They took a core component of their build, the thing that made it work, and said, we can't do this. Like, you want to talk about a major engineering decision, right? That is an engineering decision that if this, I mean, I'm sure it happens in regular businesses too, but if this happened to an engineering firm, half of the engineers are going to threaten the ownership with bodily injury. Like, you are changing a core component of this, but it was done to make it more user-friendly and more accessible, right?
yeah. The problem with the synchro mesh belts, so the reason we picked them is because they can change planes of direction extremely easily.
Yep.
That's the unique property of a synchro mesh belt, or cable in this instance. So the problem is we didn't have access to like 3mm belts or something smaller. We only had access to like 6mm or larger, which don't change their planes very easily. They'll slowly slide off the idlers. So when we were testing this, what would happen is synchro mesh uses plastic idlers. That's what they're spec'd for. So you have a hot end that's going on top of these plastic idlers. What happens when a little bit of molten filament falls onto plastic? It's going to melt the idlers.
It's
and that happened
fine.
so many times.
Yeah.
Our testers would be left with a spaghetti of synchro mesh because that stuff wanted to coil back up, and it was a nightmare. Essentially, if that happened to a printer, it was almost a lost cause. We just cut the whole thing and almost toss it out. It was such a pain in the butt to actually fix that problem it was so much easier to just say, we're changing the entire kinematic system and we're moving forward. And that's why it's taken 2 years for us to bring this to market, because we spent 1 year testing the original design only to just redo everything and get the next one out.
That's a big deal. And now you're using 3mm wide belts, right? Yeah.
3mm belts, yeah.
So I saw the latest Positron in person, actually met you in person at the Rocky Mountain Rep Festival. Those interviews will start to come out this coming week if you're watching live, and last week if you're listening audio only. So go to the channel, subscribe, like all those things. And hey, support us on the channels, you know, Patreon, PayPal, you have channel members and all that. It doesn't cost you a lot, but you get a lot of cool access. There's going to be a ton of behind the scenes, including Nomad and I acting like absolute ding-dongs while we're waiting for the printer that literally used quadcopter motors to stop making noise so we could finish our filming. So there will be some behind the scenes stuff that will be released. And if you do want to see both Nomad and I having a bunch of fun, a couple of bucks a month gets you access to that kind of stuff. RS Makes is asking, are the belts still 2mm pitch?
I believe they are. I don't entirely remember these necessary specifications of it. But yeah, we're using, believe it's like GT2 or something. We're using 3mm GT2, and it just works.
Ah, yes, the Widowmaker of your Porsche GT2. Zolan says, Grant, how's that any different from your normal? I'm not always unhinged. Sometimes I'm tired. But it was, hey. All right. I guess we should also point out that you and I are friends as well.
Yeah.
That you randomly stumbled into our channel during a live stream and just instantly started trolling me from your personal channel. And I'm like, who is this guy? He's just coming in here acting like he owns the place, trolling me. And then he joins for the $10 tier, which means he gets into the Discord. So now I can't get rid of him. And now he's hanging out with us every night. And I guess he's okay. Right? But then we realize he's building this upside down printer and it all makes sense to me. Right? It all makes sense to me. And if you've been on, if you follow us on social media, specifically on Twitter or Exhibit X, I don't know, you'll realize that we've been trolling with Positron quite a bit. All of that occurred within our Discord with a bunch of people in a voice chat, and we were all figuring out how we could like make this way funnier. So like I was tagging the Australian fans that are in there. It was a lot of fun, and you know, I'll say, outside of a really unique and interesting printer, Nomad's a pretty decent guy. You know, pretty decent. At least a good 7.5 out of 10. Everyone's got room for improvement. But
Indeed.
yeah, and seeing the project for the first time was amazing. I've seen it with the Synchro Mesh, and I love the Synchro Mesh. I think that they're really unique in the way that they work. But yeah, there's a supply chain problem with it, with human malware, because it's like some medical thing that they were used in, and you guys were making it a bit of a problem. So the belts made way more sense.
The story of that is actually pretty fun. So we released the designs, and at this time, this was before LDO kind of fully came into the picture. We were just working on helping people self-source the parts so they could build their own. And people started doing a group order. So one person would gather a bunch of payment and order a part and then distribute it amongst everyone else.
Right.
Because of course there's a minimum volume orders for this type of product. So people started getting calls back from the supplier, like, what's going on? Is this like a scam? Like, we've got a sudden influx of orders for this. Like, we almost never sell this. Like, what's going on here? We single-handedly caused a supply chain shortage in the middle of COVID for something that I only recently found out is used for medical equipment. I feel great.
Now, I kind of look, that wasn't the only supply chain thing. We don't use the C word on YouTube, okay? It's human malware around here. That's fine. I didn't warn you. That's my fault. But, you know, I would love to know what it's used in, right? I don't think Amber
Right.
has experience taking apart the machinery, but now I kind of want to find it because I want to see how it is used in industry, because I've seen how it's used by a bunch of ragtag engineers that say this should work in theory, and then all of a sudden it works in practice. I like the regular belts anyways because it's more accessible to the end user, and quite frankly probably brought the price of the product down to be a little
Oh
bit
yeah.
more reasonable because you're not like sticking on something specific, right?
Yeah, and with the belts are so much easier to work with. I had to do some of the custom colors on my unit. I had to remove some of the idlers, and I'm
Mhm.
sitting here like, hmm, this kinematic system's complicated. I don't want to release the tension on this too much.
Yeah.
But I just said I have to at some point, so I undid the idler and just held it, and then let it go gently to see what happened. It was fine. It didn't like tangle up or anything. It just stayed there because it's a belt.
Mhm.
It doesn't go anywhere unless you move it. So I was able to replace the pieces, put it back on, get the tension back up and running, and we were good to go. Let me turn off a light real quick because I see it pulsing.
Oh,
It's not supposed to do that.
yeah, you're fine. I mean, it's no big deal. Uh, I uh, I just stopped. I just let everything happen. You know,
There we go.
we've dropped a few frames. It's life. This is just the way that things go sometimes, and it's live. So there, we can't fix it, right? We just gotta have to deal with it.
I don't
But
know. I just fixed it. I feel good about myself.
so I would like to know more about like, 'cause to me, Positron is like its big unique thing to me is that it prints upside down. The glass bed is heated and it's totally clear and it's heated evenly across it. But when I was making the copy for this, you said you're missing the point. The Positron is
Yep.
ultra portable. And to me, the ultra portability is like a secondary feature. Because, like, okay, it's cool that it can do that, but it's really cool that it can that it can, print upside down.
Yeah. I like to say there's three cool factors to this printer. The first one is what our goal was, which was to make a portable 3D printer. Like, we didn't have any intention at first to make this thing print upside down.
Mhm.
That was a side effect of what we figured out was the best way to get this to work.
But okay,
So,
nobody else has made a 3D printer that's upside down that I can recall. So why was printing upside down the best way that this could work?
the reason it works this way, the best way, is because what we do is we take the kinematic system into the
Mhm.
base. The reason we're doing that is because there have been printers that are able to fold. Those exist. The problem is that um, with those printers, you have to re-square the gantry essentially. And that is simply just a pain in the butt because you are constantly going and re-leveling the bed, redoing all these things, and it just doesn't it's not reliable.
Right.
Because when you're taking a printer from say a dorm room to a workshop and you're redeploying this, you don't want to be sitting there for 30 minutes re-leveling the gantry, re-squaring the cantilever, or redoing. It's all just super annoying. And what we wanted to do was, okay, in under a couple of minutes, I want to be printing. Our goal, I think, was we want to be printing in under 10 minutes. So we decided to put all the kinematics in the base, and we mean all the kinematics, including the Z motor. Everything in the base of the printer so you don't have to redo it at any point in time. It
Right.
just can work.
Right. Right.
So that's what we did, and as a result of that, well, where do we put the hot end? Because when you look at a Core XY system, or in this case, what we use is a heavily modified HBOT system, you need the gantry either completely open in a box facing down, or you use HBOT so it's from the top facing down.
Okay.
You can't really figure out a way to you're gonna have to break Euclidean physics in order to print right side up with all the things in the base of the printer. So we just said, screw it. Let's
Go upside
put the
down.
hot end on the bottom and let's figure it out. Which brought us to the next problem, which was, okay, so we're printing upside down. We don't have a lot of space in the base of this printer. So what are we doing to, make this hot end fit?
Right, because yeah, like
Because
a traditional E3D V6, I have one handy, is it's perfectly normal sized, gentlemen. But it's here, I got calipers on the desk. Let's just go for it, right? I don't know if this one is like regulation everything, but call it 64 and a half millimeters in length. And I mean, with enough force, I could bend the heat sink away from the heat block, but I don't think the printer's going to like that. We've seen some Revos have that happen and some bamboo hot ends have that happen, but I don't think those are generally intentional. So you guys had to kind of reinvent the way that hot ends worked as well.
yeah, so what we originally did, and I don't have an example here, but what we originally did was we literally took an Ender 3 heat block. So if you look at Ender 3 heat block, it's rectangular in shape.
Right.
And the idea is that it comes down and out. Pretty straightforward.
Exactly.
What we
Literally
decided
straightforward.
is if you put it on the length side, so, nozzle's normally right here, and, you put it like this. If you drill in from this end, you could make it a 90 degree, because what you do is you put a little spacer or a little redirector
Right.
in the one side so that it prints 90 degrees. And that's what we did. We just drilled into Ender 3 heat blocks to make a 90-degree hot end with a brass insert where the nozzle would normally go.
That is the most jank thing that I've ever heard, but it freaking works, right?
It worked.
It's one of those, if it's jank and it works, is it actually jank? And the answer is no, it's not.
Yeah. So the Positron LT and Journeymaker, these are branches of the original project that are designed to be more easy to self-source. They still use that hot end. And it still works. There's a lot of printers out there that are based off the Positron LT and the Journeymaker that they just work. But we knew right off the gate that that was not going to be something we wanted for mass production when LDO came on board. Okay. So we reached out to Fadus, and they made this, which is the first 90-degree hot end that was officially made by Fadus. I love looking at this because this is absolutely a feat of engineering. It is a die-cast hot end.
It's like you really did just take the hot end and say, and twist it at 90 degrees. You just went into CAD and said, all right, I'm going to grab this piece and I'm just going to rotate 90, click apply, and just hope the rest of the CAD doesn't go into a Christmas tree, right?
Right? So it is a 90-degree bend. So it's not just like a right angle. It actually curves into it.
Yeah, it has to have a curve or it's going to clog really quickly. No?
That's what we thought.
Oh.
So in order to get that curve, we did a die-cast system. It was difficult to manufacture because die casting is not necessarily repeatable in mass production. So we moved away from this actually because we realized something. We're talking about fluid dynamics here. What do water pipes do when they make a 90-degree turn? They just bend.
Yeah, they just work. Yeah.
Exactly. So we thought about this, and this is something I definitely think there's going to be like scientific studies or something done on, and that is the fluid dynamics of molten filament.
Okay.
When filament is molten, just like water, it doesn't care as long as there's pressure. So in the newer hot ends, they are just machined parts with two cuts with a 90 degree in the middle.
Huh.
And it just works.
It just works, ladies and gentlemen. There it is. That's the quote. That's the quote. We don't get it. It just works. And okay, yeah. I mean, I guess in theory it makes sense, right?
Yeah. Now, to be fair, we definitely have not tested with, stuff that has abrasive material in it, because why would we? This is not necessarily a printer that's designed for like engineering grade filament.
Sir, I would like to print carbon fiber reinforced Ultem 9085, and I will accept no excuses for all of your abilities to not get it there. No, it's not possible, guys. This is a printer that fits in a filament box. You're gonna have to make some basic compromises here, please.
Well, as the famous words of Matthew Mercer, you can certainly try.
You can. You just have a spare hot end and a
There you
bed,
go.
because you're gonna
So,
probably ruin both of those. Yeah, how do you deal
nice
with
thing about
filament clogs?
so I had one at Rocky Mountain.
Yeah.
One. It scared the crap out of me. What we did was we just heated up the hot end and we just stuck an Allen key in the back end
Oh,
of the
and
hot
just yeah. All right.
end
Well,
and rammed it through.
did you at least ask it for
Um,
consent? That seems very forward of you. In front of a bunch of people? How dare you?
yeah, it's just public view, man.
Hey, that would not be the first time I've done it either. All right. It's even better when you heat up the Allen key, because it's so clogged. It's not just the regular heat's not working, so you got to give it a little bit extra. Um, and so that cleared the clog then.
Yeah, that cleared the clog. I'm not entirely sure like why it did that, because we weren't using anything fancy. We were using some just normal cookie CAD PLA.
Dust, dirt,
Um,
and debris at shows like that can
yeah,
be ubiquitous. And even though people seem to believe it's a fair bit, a 0.4 millimeter nozzle's not large. Okay,
no, it's not.
that is like 2 hairs thick. There's not a lot to it. And so yeah, even like a small piece of dirt, and dirt is normally silica, right? There's
Well, so
glass.
we the clog was actually inside the heat break,
Oh, okay.
or not in the heat break, but right here on the heat block in this area.
Yeah,
So it just had to be forced through.
right.
Um, and yeah, it's kind of hard to say exactly. It likely was a little piece of filament that just broke off and just wasn't letting the other filament kind of go in correctly. So it's likely something along those lines. But we're working on stuff like that, trying to figure out all the tuning to make sure that it doesn't happen again, at least from software side. But when we look at this hot end, yeah, in our testing, we haven't had any catastrophic clogs. We haven't had any blobs of doom, thankfully. The hot end accepts a normal V6 style hot end, so any one of these could just pop right in.
Oh, so you could
However
put a
you
diamond
want.
nozzle on it, like what we
You
were talking
could.
about.
Please don't, if you want to keep the integrity of your bed.
Not right now. So
Yeah.
and we'll get to some of the current issues in a little bit, because like I want to save that for, because I know some of the current issues and I think that they're worth talking about, but
Absolutely.
well, I want to get us through kind of a little bit of the intro stuff first. It's funny, are you reading the chat as well or no?
Uh, no, I haven't.
If you're not, then you answered a question perfectly from the chat without even knowing it. Samuel Miller said, "Hi from the UK. Were there any issues you faced after you had to modify the hot end since the filament path is traveling around a corner?" You literally worked right into that right as he said it. So I thought that you were reading the comments, but clearly, because it is becoming degenerates in there. So, which I'm fine with, by the way. Just
I
keep it
can't wait to read it
reasonably
back.
PC. Yeah, because otherwise you'd be giggling right now, because some of the comments are
Oh,
hilarious.
100%.
But yeah, and Zolan says, 90-degree turns in water pipes actually can cause water hammering effect, which is a pressure issue that is being discussed. Because yeah, and then there's Ben Cox, one of our down under kind of buddies, said fluid will cavitate and or eddy around tight 90-degree bends, because you do have to look at filament like a very viscous fluid at this point, because when it's making that bend, it's hot, it's molten.
Yeah,
So you're really, what you have is a very complicated 90-degree bend paste extruder.
pretty much.
Yeah, that's kind of what it is. Um,
Okay,
are
are
we
people worried about a water hammer effect in a nozzle like this?
well, okay,
How hard are you slamming filament into this?
hey, what you do in your free time is between you and yours. Just, consent protection as needed and all of that. Um, and Mike from Never Let the Machines Win is here, and he says, how does it handle color changes? Must take a while to clear out old filament color. I would say it handles color changes by you painting it when you're done with the part. Because, purging that's going to suck.
Actually, it doesn't.
There's always a freaking answer for this. Okay, why not? Why doesn't it suck?
I don't have an answer for you because
it just doesn't.
It just doesn't. It acts like a normal hot end. Everything we threw at this, it acts like a normal hot end. It's an enigma.
I want to see Brendan Builds take one of these hot ends and build like a crazy 7-axis printer or something.
Right.
That's interesting. I guess, and so Rex is here saying that Stratasys is melted before the 90-degree bend. Is it SSYS? So I think that is Stratasys. I think that's their NASDAQ stock ticker, whatever. I don't, I guess maybe there is one from Stratasys that does that. But anyways, I find it interesting that nobody else has gone this route because you guys also have to deal with slicing a little bit differently. You can still use regular slicers, but support is not the way that you think.
Yeah, and that's the fun part.
It's also
So
the problem part too.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll come out and say, the Positron team is a small team. We have recently expanded, which I'm so grateful for our volunteers that help us out. But we don't have any necessarily software developers who know how to modify slicers to the point where like we can change support material.
Right.
So one thing that we're noticing, normal supports work because they are designed to interface with the material and provide structural support.
Right.
And when you're dealing with things that are upside down, structural support is structural support. The only difference is rather than holding up the weight of the material that you're printing, you're holding up the weight just in the opposite direction. So, rather than dealing with 9.8 meters per second squared, you're dealing with negative 9.8 meters per second squared. So, in theory, as long as your supports can handle normal gravity, it should work, but we need less of it because the other interesting aspect is bridging and overhang support. That's
Okay.
where things are different.
They get a little
because they do get weird. Normally, when you think of bridging, you're thinking, okay, I have to fight gravity.
Yeah, it
because
droops
I'm going this long
into
distance.
your part.
Exactly. But when gravity is holding up that filament, what do? You're now not fighting gravity, but you're fighting the extrusion.
Yeah, you're
because gravity's now pulling up that piece instead of pulling it down.
you're fighting you're fighting cooling effectively, which I guess you're also kind of fighting with regular bridging. If you can cool the ever-loving crap out of your filament, you generally can get decent bridging. But if you overcool for regular bridging, okay, it doesn't connect. If you overcool on this, it falls into the hot end.
Yeah.
You guys actually have a really cool sock system as well. Your
Yes.
your silicone sock is unique.
Do I have a spare here? I don't think I do. I think I used up my
It's got
spare.
like a wiper on it, basically. It's got like a built-in wiper.
It has not a wiper. It has a little tray. It's there to catch any of the. Oh, this is a terrible.
It is a cup to catch any spare filament extrusion.
Any drool. Oh god.
Look, man, it at the end of the day, it is what it is. All right, it's a drool cup for your printer. All right,
it's a drool.
It's a poop box, but it's not a poop box. It's a little bit weird to have a moving poop box, but hey, you do you. Yeah, that's like because back in the day, we solved this problem right before silicone socks were a big thing. We use a lot of Kapton, because Kapton was used to kind of insulate both thermally and electrically, right? But it was also great because not a lot sticks to it. And I've seen people make like little caps, if you will, out of the Kapton tape so that it could wipe away excess BS. You're using this to actually capture it so it doesn't fall into the motion system of the machine, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, when we were using synchro mesh, that was a big problem because we were just using like a standard sock.
Yeah.
Or at least in our first beta units with LDO, we were using this sock, which is great, but stuff can dribble and it will just kind of fall off the side.
You should call it a bib. It's not a sock. Bearded Bucket's right. Not so much a sock, but more of a bib.
Yeah, no, that's right. The newer one is a bib. This is still a sock. So we... So... Yeah, it caused problems. It caused the idlers to melt on the synchro mesh version. And that caused us to create this new silicon bib because we didn't want that happening again. Now, since we've moved to belts, we've changed all of our idlers out for metal idlers, so no problem there. It does introduce a new problem, which I found out when dismantling my printer for a little bit of maintenance, which I don't think many printers have this issue. We'll get into it later. And so right now the biggest issue is we don't want filament falling into the guts of your printer. It'd be fine unless you're printing with conductive filament, but you know, you don't want to pick up your printer and have a little rattling in there like, oh, you know, I got myself a little maraca.
I got a maraca. Yeah. Yeah, I could certainly see that. And, you know, there have been questions about abrasive filament printing, and I think currently the answer is don't, right?
Yeah.
We don't know how it's going to react with the heat block. I mean, obviously it's going to smooth some things out, but we don't actually know what's going to happen. I can test it, you could test it, anybody could test it, but it's going to be expensive because you are going to ruin a hot end.
Yeah, I have to double check with Fadus. I believe the hot end is plated copper.
No matter what it's made out of, carbon fiber, unless it's a hardened steel heat block, which there is no point in that occurring. It is going to degrade it.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's going to degrade that 90 degree. That's why we don't recommend abrasives. You can try. We haven't tested it. That's the fun part. We intentionally didn't test it because we're not designing it for that purpose. We figured right out the gate, okay, what do we want to do with this printer so we don't have to over-engineer this? And one of the things was PLA, PTG, stop there.
Right.
In theory, we could do ABS, ASA, but we're not going to test that. We're going to tell you, hey, this bed, while it can get up to 100 degrees Celsius, it's rated for 80.
Yeah.
Because that is what we determined to be the safe operating limit. So if you are willing to possibly break something, I encourage experimentation.
Hey, and you encourage the ordering of spare parts, right?
Yes.
That's another, you know, big one. And as Mike from Never Let Machines Win says, I don't think that abrasive filaments is a concern for the main target market for this printer. And that's true.
Exactly.
But there is something to note. Polymaker's Polyterra, right? Most people look at it as regular PLA. It's not. And in fact, it is very mildly abrasive. And a lot of these high-speed filaments tend to be a little abrasive. It's whatever additives, whatever 11 herbs and spices that people are adding can be mildly abrasive. But these high-speed printers are often already coming with hardened internals. So it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm definitely going to check with Fadus to make sure that this is of a hardened material, at least to help with that. I have been using primarily, I believe, Polyterra in my machine without much issue.
Interesting.
In fact, specifically saying, my first clog was at Rocky Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
So, at least what I'm using is what I presume to be just bog standard PLA. But that's the fun part about this project. Our testing team was roughly like 8 people large because we just couldn't afford more people to be on the team. Right. I it's just, the nature of an open source project. We don't have, a multi-million-dollar funding. We just have the gracious donation of LDO giving us these kits without asking anything of us, because they
And the
believe
gracious
that we can make
donations of viewers and sponsors just like you.
Yes. So that we can create these printers and experiment and develop them.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't have done this without LDO. We couldn't have done this without the Positron LT team, who a lot of them are part of our beta team. So they actually helped us do a lot of things, such as they helped us move from the previous magnetic connector to a edge connector, which was far more safe than what we had before.
Nice.
So there's certainly going to be bugs with this printer, but we are excited to see the solutions that the community comes up with. We have solved many of them ourselves, and we are happy with the results. I've been printing for like anywhere between 1,000 to 2,000 hours. I don't know the exact number on my printer.
It's a fair bit.
And I haven't had many issues myself.
Mm-hmm.
It prints, and it prints pretty good. Is it the highest quality printer? No. Can it be a very high quality printer? Yes. With just the right amount of tuning, this printer can do phenomenal.
That's nice.
It's just like a Voron. You have to give it attention and care in order to be good. If you just build a Voron and you don't do tuning, or you don't do what you're supposed to do, it's going to be a bad printer.
Yep.
So we're excited to see what the community does with this. We're excited to see people customize it and make it their own, because the possibilities really are endless. We're thinking of Positron more as a platform for people to have fun with portability.
And I like that about it, right? Portability is it is super cool, right? Also, thank you to Zombie Hedgehog for the $1.49 banana. Greatly appreciated. Thank you for the potassium, I guess. And the slight radiation. Thank you, sir. The ability to fold it into a filament box it's objectively pretty damn cool. But
yeah,
it comes with a Pelican case, right? Like that's its thing. It comes with a Pelican case that it fits into, or a rugged case. I don't know if it's like legit Pelican, but it's a rugged case.
I will say it is Pelican-like.
Yeah.
Because using real Pelican cases, we would drastically up the price of this unit, and we don't want to, because it's
there's no point
already, a lot of R&D. But yes, every kit that you order from LDO will come with one of these. Mm-hmm. And I love this thing.
Yeah.
I have dropped this thing from hip height on accident, and the printer is fine. It has fallen off my luggage, and it has been fine. And getting through the airport with this is so easy to do. It's just a breeze. And the fact that this is carry-on size makes it even better, because you can just bring it with you. You don't have to worry about this being checked baggage and possibly getting dinged up. You're good. It's the perfect travel size. And of course, you can take it out, put it in a filament box if you just want to toss it in your backpack. This is really for, hey, I'm going on a train, bus, or plane, and I don't want it to be damaged during that transit.
Right.
But if you're just bringing this printer from your dorm room to a workshop, toss it in your backpack. Put it in a filament box.
Yep.
You don't need to bring around in this.
I carried a big Pelican case through security. It's not technically branded Pelican. I'm fairly certain it's an Italian Pelican case, but for our tech Leo, and I was fine too. Normally, so when I bring my Eva through, so this is the Eva, the Leo's back in its case, but this is the Eva. When I bring the Eva through, the Eva always gets stopped. I don't know why, but the Eva always gets stopped. The Leo, no one cared. No one cared at all. It was funny.
Yeah. Well, it was really funny. So on my flight back from Rocky Mountain, me and Mandic really bumped into each other.
Yeah,
and
I saw that. In fact, he's in the chat saying it's easier than a camera bag.
So we were on the exact same flight. We showed up the exact same time at the airport. Mm-hmm. And I was like, hey, where are you heading to? And he's like, Philly. I'm like, oh, so am I.
I'm also
what
going
flight?
to Philly. Yeah.
And we were on the exact same flight. And I'm like, man, that's great. But the first thing I said was, I was worried about where I was going to put this when I had to use the bathroom. So we went through airport security together, and so our things were one after the other. And if you haven't been at Rocky Mountains TSA, every TSA is different. So if you're outside the United States, it's always a nice little fun magic bag of what you're gonna get. So Rocky Mountain has a more sophisticated TSA system where you put it on this automatic belt system that has like mechanism wheels, and at the other side of the X-ray machine, there is a system that will divert the bag either to TSA agents or back to you so you could take it and go. So we're both sitting there and we're watching through the plexiglass and we see it stop right before this diversion.
And the heart is like,
And we're sitting there. His bag with all his camera gear goes to TSA. And I'm like, uh-oh, all right, here it comes.
Yep.
And then the rollers rotate towards us, and the Positron just comes right on out.
My camera bag will often get stopped because there are so many cables and batteries in it. It looks a little suspicious. And they see that I'm from Florida, ultra suspicious. So, yeah, and it's like, what's in here? I said, you're welcome to open it. It's a bunch of camera stuff. They're like, okay, that makes sense. Next time, can you please make your cables a little bit more tidy? I'm like, did I just get shamed by TSA for just like winding cables up in like a reel, right? You know, something like this, right? And then putting a wrap on them and then putting them in my bag. So this time I bought a cable organizer and it was fine. No one cared. I'm like, all right. So they're picky about organization. Got it.
Yeah.
Stupid.
You know, if they're not clearly separated, then it's like,
yeah, it looks a little suspicious. Also, thank you to the networking guy and Pez Liz for the basic support. Thank you all for joining the channel. But you know, and that's a freaking cool thing because you were able to basically set it up and theoretically print while you were waiting for your aircraft. Because you're supposed to be there pretty early.
We got to the gate and me and Mandic were like, this is, I was explaining how I wanted to get photos of it deployed because on my flight into Rocky Mountain, I didn't get time at PHL because I literally got there just as they started opening the gate. So I got there just in time.
Buddy, why did you show up so late?
No, I wasn't late. I made sure to get there just early enough that as soon as I got there, I only waited like 5-10 minutes before they started letting people on.
Got it.
But I just didn't have enough time nor enough daylight outside to really get a good photo of the Positron. So I started setting up and I was like, hey, Mandic, you want to make some content real quick? So we did, and we had some fun with it. We got some great photos of planes in the background, the Positron on a windowsill. And yeah, if we had filament, we absolutely could have started printing. One word of warning to anyone who tries to fly to rep festivals or to anywhere with a 3D printer.
Don't use it on the plane. Don't be stupid.
Please don't.
Yeah.
I love how we've created a problem where it's like, okay, now we have made a printer that's small enough to come onto the flight. So I have to be very specific in saying, do not
don't meet air marshals
3D printers.
You know, involuntarily.
Yeah, air marshals will not enjoy the smell of burning plastic on their flight.
Unless it's a Boeing flight, and then it could be you or it could be the airplane. You never really know. Yeah,
you're in a sealed box. People are going to smell it. There's a reason why you're not allowed to smoke. So, anyway, if you ever fly to rep festivals, do not bring your filament on carry-on.
Yep.
If you can avoid it. Keep it in a separate bag, preferably at the top of your checked bag, because it looks like det cord.
It does. Yes, I did learn this after Smurf. Yeah, I think it was after Smurf. We had a filament with us. They're like, "What is this?" I'm like, "It's 3D printer filament." They're like, "You know it doesn't look like that, right?" I'm like, "So what's it look like?" He said, "Oh, it looks like det cord." I'm like, "That's more expensive." All right.
Yeah. So definitely don't print on a plane.
Yeah.
Don't bring filament. Just please. We're happy that the FAA currently is totally fine with 3D printers being brought.
Don't mess with
planes.
3-letter organizations. It's simple.
Please Please don't be the reason there's rules against 3D printers on planes.
Yeah, don't be that person, please. Thank you. That's been your PSA.
Yeah, that is my public service announcement. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
So when we look at the development of this, right? The bed is unique. And Felicia D0514 says, sounds like an infomercial. It's not like this. I asked the Positron guys to come on and chat. I just think this is uniquely cool. We've had some cool machines launch recently in the industry, but there is no money here. I'm not even a beta tester, okay? Like, I've only ever seen it. I'm like, it's just cool. Nonetheless, the bed. The bed is probably one of the harder things for this because, like, on a regular 3D printer, you can look at it, right?
Yep.
And you can see it because it's printing right side up. But when you decide to go on the other side of the equator for some reason, everything is now upside down. And your printer being upside down means you can't just, you'd have to like get under it and look at it. And
Yep.
that's not always the easiest thing. And you're definitely going to look weirder than you would with a normal printer. So instead of like installing a mirror and putting a camera, you said, let's make a clear build plate. Why?
Yes. So there's a lot of interesting parts. So we started developing this printer back when that was the standard. Glass plates
Yes.
were the standard for all printers when we started developing this.
Yep.
So, like, and that's another reason why I say we don't have a physical sensor for the bed leveling because during this time, everyone didn't have BL touches, clicky probes, easy probes. They just weren't a thing yet.
Right.
So when we started developing on this, we were like, okay, glass surface, that's what we have to use. But the glass surfaces we had were like Ender 3 beds, and we're like, well, we can't see through this. This is not fun.
Yeah, it's that carborundum, which is silicon carbide, by the way.
Yeah.
It's literally sandpaper on your build plate.
So we put the heating element on, and that was the biggest problem. We had a glass bed that we could see through, but this heating element just blocked it. So what were we supposed to do? I can't see the first layer. How do I know this is going to stick? We had a lot of print failures back then. And so we thought, well, okay, how can we heat up this glass without, blocking the view? So we started thinking, started brainstorming, and, we're up in the Northeast. It gets cold. We have this thing called snow. It happens. And what do you do when your rear window is frozen over?
You use the little heat
Yeah.
pipe thingies, whatever the hell they're called. It's a
You
defroster, but
use-
I don't know what they're made out of.
You use copper tape that is on the back of your window.
Yeah.
So we called up a company, and we got copper tape.
But that's not what
And-
the beds are now.
No, but this was one of the early prototypes. So we were able to make this copper tape, which is fairly transparent. You can see through it.
Yeah, it's
And that
transparent
worked.
enough, but it's not like the new system.
Exactly. And so when we brought LDO on, we were still using beds that looked like this, essentially. In fact, Fabrico, I believe, had one of the early units with the original heat bed.
They did, yeah.
Which I ran over and saw. I was like, oh, my baby. It was wonderful to see that old design still functioning somehow. But with working with the LDO, we had more access to more advanced materials. One of those, of course, led to the 3mm belts. But the other one led to the LT team working with LDO to come up with this. And this is a heated bed.
Except
So-
it's pretty much transparent.
Exactly. So
So freaking cool.
how does this work? Well, here's the fun part. What makes this work also is in every single person's pocket. It is on every
Lint?
single...
Pocket sand. Sha.
No, it is how your phone is able to tell when you press on it.
My phone's on my desk, though.
Okay, well, you're special.
You said every single person. Only a Sith deals in absolutes, and on May 5th even. Good sir.
No, so all phones use an ITO coding to sense when you're pressing on the screen because it's conductive.
And that's
It's the
ITO.
conductive
What does
coding.
ITO stand for?
I believe it's indium tin oxide. Chat, please correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, indium tin oxide coating is just a very thin coating that uses indium and tin as a conductive material through this layer.
Right.
And phones are able to use it to detect your XY coordinates on the phone by measuring resistance and all that. So it's a resistor, which means, as we all know in 3D printing, resistors can heat up.
Wait a minute. So, okay, I have like a tempered glass screen protector on my phone.
Yep.
Could I also put a tempered glass screen protector on a Positron?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Cool.
So what we did is on the backside. So we always refer to the backside of the glass as the side that's actually on the top, the side you do not print on.
Yeah.
So on the backside of the glass, we put this ITO coating on, and we just have these conductors on the side that attach to this PCB here. And this actually is using the old connector that, was a bit of a fire hazard, so we're not using it anymore. And
Is this A1 or A8? Where are we at on the fire scale?
I don't know the fire scale.
ANET A8, Bamboo Lab A1. Okay, is it gonna smoke the connector and potentially cause a fire, or is it gonna burn down several houses level of fire?
It's A1. What in one of our early testers, if you just didn't put this on correctly, you could short the pins and just puff of smoke.
Yeah,
It was just like a spark and a puff of smoke.
We've
but
been
it was
through
just
the magic
like,
smoke before.
Yeah, I don't feel safe doing that.
No.
I love holding this up because this is actually one I burnt out myself by going above 100 degrees.
That's why you can't have nice things.
Exactly. So on this side, on the front side of the glass, where the ITO coating is not, it's just glass.
Yeah.
There's no protective film. There's nothing. It's just glass. And it's crazy how much people have forgotten that's what we used to use. I have had
Well, to be clear, a lot of them aren't old enough to remember. Right? They haven't been in the industry long enough. Like, dude,
but we're talking about like a transition period of 3 years.
You're right. Some people have only been in this industry for 6 months. And there are people joining the industry new every single day.
Exactly.
I will have to put a picture of it up somewhere, but I have real borosilicate glass build plates for some of our bigger printers. Like, that cost me $100 and something a piece because they're 1/4 inch thick, perfectly flat borosilicate glass plates. And they're amazing. And then people are like, oh, I really want a shiny surface. Then print on glass. Oh, but you can't flex it. You can once.
Yep. But thank you for reminding me. These are borosilicate as well. So they are virtually perfectly flat.
Yeah, and they're shock resistant. So they're
Yes.
they're unlikely to do what bamboo glass like we showed in Print Fix Friday, a top from a bamboo just popped on somebody, and according to the comments, because I was corrected heavily, that it can do that spontaneously, but it's because of stressors built up in the glass. It's not often that the glass just pops on its own. It normally needs some sort of extra thing, but it was I guess it was Friday that I learned that I too am also tempered glass, where I don't traditionally get angry for no reason, but sometimes, and every now and then I do. So I too am tempered glass. But yeah, that's kind of cool. So all right, because we were talking about this with the ITO coating, because the ITO coating is delicate, like very delicate, right?
So it is at least scratch resistant. Obviously, if I take my nails to it, it's not going to scratch.
Right.
And if you take I don't recommend. We haven't done a hardness test on this, so please don't be the first one to take a razor to the back of your build plate and then complain. But it should be scratch resistant to most tools, because most tools are soft enough to not actually scratch this. Because again, this is the same stuff used on phones. So, for example, if your phone doesn't scratch, then it should be fine. But again, please be careful. If, however, this does get scratched, yes, that is a problem. Because the even heating relies on the fact that
it has to
it's
be a
able
full
to
connection
go.
across.
Yes, a
Yeah.
full connection across. If there is a scratch, say right down the middle, well, it's going to want to go around that in order to make the connection. And then all of a sudden, you have a cold spot. Now, what that means is your bed's not heating up properly.
I mean,
And you're going to
eventually
have,
it will even out, but it will take some time.
eventually, yes,
Yeah.
it's going to take a lot of time.
It's how we
And
used
the
to do it in the
bigger
good old
issue-
days. We would just wait. You would set your
Yes.
heat bed, and then you would come back in 25 minutes, and it would be a nice, even heat. Because
Yeah,
heaters
so-
weren't that good. God, it's like, so you have to combine a lot of like old school knowledge base with new school cool here. I like it.
Yeah. So as long as the scratch isn't up in this area where the thermistor is,
Mm-hmm.
you should be fine. You should be able to get away with it.
Right.
But you do have to be careful because if this isn't able to sense it, you can burn out the bed.
Right.
That's
'cause
how I burnt out this bed.
it'll thermal
because-
runaway.
Yeah.
Without
So I burnt
knowing.
out this bed because I did not have two things. One, I had the wrong sensor information in my clipper config
Mm-hmm.
because we were experimenting with two different thermistors at the time,
Right.
and whoopsie daisy, that happened. So what we've done to help alleviate that is on the new LDO beds, we have the information silk screened on the PCB about what the thermistor is, what the heating is, so you
Smart.
can set that without, any problem.
Yeah,
per
without
se.
like potentially burning stuff out. So,
So-
wait, so like this bed coating has always been like the thing, and we've talked about this. I'm always stuck on this bed coating. It's unique, but it's also relatively delicate as far as bed coatings go. Why don't we just put a tempered glass sheet on top of it?
You absolutely can.
But that would protect it and make it strong.
Yeah. So the
All right.
reason we're not doing that is just mainly at the time complexity of assembly.
No, that's fine.
So-
It can be offered as a third party thing.
Yeah.
When we're done today, I'm gonna make some phone calls because I think that if I was to build one, that's the thing I'm most worried about for me is
Yeah.
me working on it, dropping a hex key on a build plate. Traditionally, that's not a freaking problem. On this, it actually is.
Thankfully on this, it's sturdy enough to resist that.
It's better.
I've dropped stuff on this. I've taken tools to this, and I have absolutely done things where I'm like, "Ugh," but it's been perfectly fine. So it is resistant enough to withstand normal wear and tear and normal daily use.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't actually have to worry too much about, it being air quote unprotected. It is a pretty resistive coating. So
Right.
you should be all right. But yeah, no, we're currently working on the aftermarket side of things because one of the things we're trying our best to encourage is the customization of the printer.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing, if you open up the PCB on this printer, the main board, you'll find that we have headers that we're not using for the X end stop, the Y end stop, the Z end stop. More importantly, for that Z end stop, we also have a solenoid connection so that you can use a BL Touch if you want. It's there already. You can do it. Now, that's on batch 1. On batch 2 and further, we're trying to put headers on the tool head so you can just put it there. But it's there right now.
Yeah.
So you can customize this if you'd like.
And that's
It's
cool.
not limiting you.
You're not releasing this saying it's a final product. Don't mod it, enjoy it. You're like, no, hot rod the crap out of it and share
Yeah.
it with the community so we all can get better.
Exactly. That's what I'm so excited for. One of the other things that we're doing that's going to be available in all the orders that people get is you'll notice in the base plate of the printer, there's now a giant just cavity on one of the sides, but we have a printed part that just fills that. Why is there a cavity that you just fill in? Well, what if you want to put in a power supply inside the printer? We made sure that it can fit a micro mean well power supply. I don't know the exact spec because we're still figuring that out.
Because that would be
But
cool
we
if
made
all I gotta
sure.
do is plug it in.
Exactly. But we're working on that.
Yeah.
Or, hey, the USB spec just got updated to include up to 240 watts, I believe.
Yep.
On 24 volts. If you can slap in a USB-C power supply in there, why not?
Like,
We want
you want to talk about ultra portability, dude.
Yeah,
Like, that's it. A 240 watt USB-C PD brick, and then just run it off wall power, right? And then
exactly.
it gets, yeah, all right, it's ultra portable, but then there's a power brick. And we all know about the power bricks. I'm looking at you, laptop manufacturers. You can't sell me a thin and light laptop with a power brick that weighs almost as much as a freaking laptop. All right, rant over.
Yeah.
I'm
And
only mildly upset at this.
and we do have a pretty beefy power brick on this machine
How many
because it is
watts?
24 volts. 24 volts, 200 watts.
Okay, but
So
that's reasonable.
it's a larger Dell power supply kind of
Yeah.
comparability. No, it's not small. We will say that it's not small, but it does keep the weight of the printer itself to only 3 kilograms. If we add a power supply, probably get up to 4 kilograms in total weight. But for something that's small, it's amazing. Mitch 3D, for example, is very excited for this because he's the backpack 3D printer guy.
Yep.
Those printers, even when made entirely out of PLA, are heavy. And we're really excited that he's part of our team. He's going to help us make battery packs for this thing so people can really go portable. He's going to help us with like a filament storage system. We have a lot of ideas for the future,
Well,
and
yeah, like,
we can't wait to just experiment.
if you can run this on USB-C PD, battery packs all of a sudden become simple. Like,
Yeah.
here, this is this is only 30 watts, so it's not going to be enough. But this is 30,000 milliamp hours. It really is like 23,000 when I've measured it. But this can do 30 watts, which means my everyday carry laptop can, if it's not really working hard, charge from this. I
Yeah.
have a Ryzen with integrated graphics and all that as my kind of like, you know, mucking around laptop, if you will. And this is nice because it gives me an extra like 12 hours on battery if I'm being conservative. And the
Yeah.
18 watt packs that I have will barely show that it's charging when it's off. So you could get a lithium battery pack. It's going to need to be a big one because a 200 watt draw is pretty substantial. I have like those Jackeries, but I have a generic
Yeah.
one because I can't.
Well, So
I don't pay.
I
the
have one as
premiums.
well. I have one, and I hooked up the Positron to this,
Yeah.
and using the AC port with a heated bed and the hot end and printing, the battery pack itself was estimating that we could get 4 hours of print time.
That's not bad. And like,
Yeah,
let's
because
be real.
it's not drawing all 200 watts.
Right.
It is using a range of power. So, and so it's limiting currently at 200 watts because of the power supply. But Zolan mentioned, his power brick is 24 volts at 300 watts. You can use that on the Positron if the barrel is compatible and push this printer to push more heat. We are using, I think it's a 75 watt heater on the hot end. At least we're experimenting
On
currently.
the hot
I
end?
think, yeah.
That's a spicy hot end. Are you
It's-
sure that's right?
I know for a fact right now one of our testers has a 75 watt heater provided by LTO,
Jeez.
and we are seeing what we can do with it.
Okay, like I'm used to like a V6 uses a 40 watt heater. Okay,
Yeah.
like, all right,
I mean,
yeah,
hey,
sure.
it's meant to be
Positron with
portable.
Ultem coming soon.
It- it's-
TM, I guess.
It's meant to be portable. If that thing can heat up fast, then hey, that's a win for us.
And as Mike says, 4 hours is long enough for a demonstration meeting for sure. Yeah, it's like
Absolutely.
I wish all of this had come out earlier. We have a really cool event coming up on Friday. That thing so it's a STEM day at the local front for the U.S. government called SoftWorks. It's a public front for U.S. Navy SOCOM. They don't even lie about it. It's what it is. And we're going to be showing stuff off there. If we're there for like 6 hours, I would bring a power supply, but being able to show upside down printing would be cool. I'm literally bringing my Magneto X to not print with it, but to have it go ba, 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 the whole show. The whole show.
Yeah.
Because that's unique. It's different. And printing upside down, it's a STEM day. People are going to think that is the coolest effing thing on the planet. And it is.
Right?
It's super cool.
And so that's what's great about this printer. It's one of my favorite parts is that This is portable. Truly, truly portable. You can take this wherever you need it to go, and that's why I love it.
Yeah.
So I work in IT. I often am in server rooms where I'm doing a bunch of rewiring or, marking cables. The company I work for, we have a color coded system for our cables
Mm-hmm.
where, okay, the red cable is the internet cable, the yellow cable is your firewall, and this cable's that. And it's a great system. I can count on my hands right now, out of the hundreds of clients we have, how many actually abide by that system.
Yeah.
And that is one. And you want to know why it's that one? It's because I set them up from scratch.
Yeah, systems
So
are not always done right. Let's just
there's a
go
great
with that.
there's a great alternative.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than redoing all the cable runs with these color coded systems, I can just print little clips on site to match that color coordination. So I can put a red clip on the internet cable, no matter what color the cable is. I can put this red tag on there to say, hey, this is the internet. Makes it so much easier for a client that's paying us hourly to be there, to be able to put what we need there, so that when I take a photo of the system for our remote techs to be able to say, hey, have you checked this cable? Is this cable good? They can easily say, look for the cable with the red clip on it. I'm able to bring that printer with me and do that on site as needed, or print cable combs, print whatever little plastic parts I need
Yep.
to help the job be more efficient. I don't necessarily need to print these before I go on site. I can, and I likely will, but it's just in case, I didn't do this. Let me go ahead and run this 30-minute print on my machine, and I'll be able to get this done before I leave.
Right, right.
And this applies not just to IT, but to job sites, to construction sites, to meetings, engineering meetups, anything where you can think that if there's ever been a situation where, oh man, I left this at the office or I left this at home and I have to wait to get back to make something for this. There you go.
Yeah.
Say you're
you don't.
working at a makerspace using their power tools and all their 3D printers are occupied or they're not tuned.
Yep.
A lot of makerspaces will have tuned printers, but a lot of them also won't, where they just aren't going to be reliable for what you need. So bring your own. Plug it in. You tuned it yourself. You know it's going to be good. You're going to be fine. And especially for these meetups showing what additive manufacturing can do to the general public, getting people interested, it is a perfect little printer to just show off what the capabilities of printing are without having to lug a giant loud machine or maybe a V0 into wherever it is you're going.
Right. And it's way
Mandic,
more portable than a V0.
yeah, like you and Mandic, you guys have giant Pelican cases for your V0s. They're
I don't
huge.
have a V0.
Oh, sorry. Well, in general, like for these small printers, these things require large Pelican cases. Mandic showed me his yesterday, and it is the size of my torso.
Yeah.
Like,
this is my big Pelican case.
yeah, it's massive.
But there's a scanner in it.
It's
It's not for a printer. Also,
Yeah.
the cat has graced her presence on the stream, so it's going to be a good day. We have the
Woo!
cat here, so that's how you know it's going to be a good day. Hello. Yeah, like, and that Pelican case is like way oversized. I don't know why it needs to be that big, but it is that big. Quick CEO, look busy. And Mandic Labs, Mr. Mandic himself is here saying, shove the Positron into the dead space in a server rack, instant enclosure, and chamber heating.
Exactly.
And
There's your
cross ventilation, so you get like those chamber fans too.
Yeah, there's your ASA printing environment. Just don't breathe it.
It's a server. If you're spending a lot of time in there, there's another problem, right?
Yeah, right.
And so when we look at the future, right? Like the ITO coding on the bed to me is kind of one of those like things, right? It should be fine, but there are some future things that are coming up here that are slated to make this a much better machine, right?
So I want to touch on the bed real quick one more time because
I know
I find it hilarious that it's come almost full circle. We now have people developing metal beds for the positron because they don't necessarily care about it being able to see the first layer. They just want a detachable bed.
Yeah.
I find this hilarious because we've come full circle where we need to make it glass transparent to be able to see the first layer. Okay, great. We've done that. It's great. It's awesome. That's now a selling point. Okay, but what if we don't?
Well, if you can get like, so if you have a system to create a perfect first layer, right? A la bamboo LiDAR, the Prusa nozzle probing, and a few others have it as well, or an eddy current sensor, that kind of stuff, right? Do you really need to look at first layers anymore? Like when it's really tuned, do you need to look at first layers anymore? And part of me says no, you don't, right? The world is a little bit different these days than what it used to be.
At the moment, we do recommend the glass bed, not because, you know, it's consumable, because we are using IR sensing.
Right.
And if people don't remember IR sensors in mass production printers, it's because we very quickly realized as an economy that they are not the best. And we used it because, again, when we first started developing, there wasn't really many alternatives that we could use.
Right.
And when using a glass bed, we thought, hey, this would be a cool and awesome way to do this that would be reliable enough. In the modern day of bamboo printers, it's not reliable enough.
Right.
And we know that. That's why we're working on adding those headers on batch 2 so people can add whatever sensor they want.
Gotta love it.
But that's why right now I think the glass bed is good, because you can see that. You can see the amount of squish the filament has on that first layer, and you can quickly adjust it on the controller board. So that you can be like, all right, that one spot may not have great adhesion, but the rest of it's perfect. I don't have to restart this print. It's going to be fine. And you can just let it go, and you'll have a good print in a couple hours, or however long that print takes.
So they're talking about the tube, which is the 100-watt heater.
Oh boy.
That's good to like 83 cubic millimeters. And Mantic Lab says the worst thing about the tube is finding a home for the tube, and I disagree. It's the name. That name is just an awkward name. I've been talking with Luke's Laboratory, theoretically future podcast guests. Get subscribed if you want to see that, because of course we totally missed Luke at Rocky Mountains. I'm a little pissed about that, because that's cool tech that we wanted to show off.
Why do you hate the name so much? It's funny.
It's just tube. Yeah. It's an awkward name. It bothers me.
Mandic showed me his tube, and it was a very nice tube.
I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was real nice. The jokes are too easy, right? The jokes are just too easy.
Exactly.
And
that's why I love it.
Maybe that's part of the point. He said, yeah, I don't want to, but thinking the same. Just don't have a build for that right now. Best answer I got is a VCore 4500, but that's months away. Yeah, I want to do a VCore 4500 too. That one could be fun. It could be worse. It could be named Grant. Wow, Zolot. See, you're only here because of Nomad. I'm just saying we can solve this problem. Tube envy. Yeah, were you envious of Mandic's tube?
Again, it's not really about the size of your tube, it's about how you use it. Okay. And I don't have a purpose for that size of tube, I like my tubes to be swappable, that's what I'm going for.
So, Revos, okay. Apparently there's an LSD. Is there a hot end called an LSD? Please tell me there isn't.
Oh my god, hold on. Is there?
Zombie says I should make a video comparing my LSD and tube. LSD, STD, and tube.
The Goliath hot end, aka LSD from VZBot.
Why?
Oh man.
Why? People. You're gonna give this cat airplane ears because I'm gonna get upset at this. Terrible. Yeah, LSD got renamed Goliath. Boy, I wonder why. I'm sure it had nothing to do with the Beatles song "Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds." No, I'm sure it had nothing to do with that.
Yeah, I'm sure it had nothing to do with TSA. And
oh my god,
like,
it was
what's in the bag?
It was Long Schlong Dong. That was the name of the hot end. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. It was not called that. And they renamed it because of shipping issues. Boy, I wonder why there'd be shipping issues if you name your product after a Schedule 1 drug. Like,
Oh my god, I love it.
I swear this industry is full of people that have the general, like, humor level of a 12-year-old boy. While I also fall into that category, it's just... Guys, there are some times, there are just some times where this a little bit of forethought here would go a long way.
And my favorite part is I'm happy with jokes like that being executed. I think what's funny is so one of the jokes that are going around, at least the communities I'm in now, is naming everything something Pro Max Plus.
Well, yeah, of course. You have to.
And I'm a little grumpy with Unify. They do Wi-Fi equipment.
Mm-hmm.
They took that joke and they actually went to market with it, and it's just stupid.
I get it, right? You know, oh, we have to be slightly edgy or we won't be as cool as Elon Musk. But thankfully, you guys are not going to be doing anything like that at Positron3D, right?
No. So we have ideas for the future, and we don't have anything set in stone yet. I think one of the absolute obvious things is if we were to make another printer, what will we do? And obviously, the obvious decision is make it bigger, because that's a challenge, and
Right.
we want to keep it portable, and we want to, make it still fold up and make it easy to use. What are the specs? I don't know. We jokingly figured out that a 3 kilogram filament box actually is about the dimensions we'd want the build plate to be. So maybe that's the goal. Make a printer fit inside a 3 kilogram filament
Have
box.
I ever gotten a box when I've ordered? I don't think I've ever gotten a box when I've ordered big spools from companies.
Oh, I
Yeah,
have one time.
the 2 1/4s, the 5 kilos, the 10, and that one time that we ordered a 25 kilo roll. They never came in boxes. They were just vacuum sealed and then put into a shipping box. Huh.
Huh. I'll have to talk to filament manufacturers, because I remember when I got a 3 kilogram box, it did come in a box.
Zombie says
So
order some Polymaker 3 kg.
that's, yeah, it was Polymaker.
Yeah, well, I don't know, man. I don't need my filament to have a box, but I do like my filament to be made in America.
Right.
But, I like supporting local labor, and I don't like supporting venture capital firms that are considered enemies of the state to the United States. But that's another talk for another day. Ultimately for the Positron, I think it's a great starting platform, and it's more than I expected it to be. So, like, I didn't realize that the synchro mesh was such an issue. My assumption was that the synchro mesh was removed because of that it was just too freaking complicated. It wasn't a sourcing issue. But when you showed me how you guys are handling your belt routing, it works perfectly fine. Was the 3 mm thick belt chosen because of the way the belts are routed, or was it just this was accessible? We made the system work with the belt.
No, so we didn't change anything about the system. The system, if you look at the V3 and the 3.2, they are using the exact same positioning for our idlers. The only difference is we're using steel idlers, or I think they're steel. They're metal. They are good and they are robust. They are no longer plastic like they were with the synchro mesh. So they won't melt when plastic gets on them. So the reason we swapped wasn't just because it was expensive, wasn't just because it was weird. It's because it was difficult to maintain as an end user. And we wanted to remove all barriers of entry and all stress points when it came to this printer. We were doing something different, vastly different, but we want it to work as much like any normal Voron FDM printer as we possibly could, so that if you have experience with that, you could easily get in on this. So that's why we went with 3 mm belts. They are easy to work with. It is easy to route. and it's just it's way easier to source. So, and not to mention far cheaper than synchro mesh. You know, if for
Yeah,
whatever
because they're
reason,
used in tons of machinery and they're ubiquitous within the industry.
yeah,
Different size, obviously, but like we intrinsically understand belts where synchro mesh is like, so you stretched out a belt and wrapped it as a helix around a piece of rope. Cool.
yeah. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why we moved away from it, because we didn't want people to have to, oh, this broke. Now I'm spending however many hours repairing this problem on my printer.
Right.
Because that might happen, and it would stink if that did happen to people. It happened to our beta testers a little too often for us to feel comfortable saying that this is the design we're going with. And our ideology of this is, you know, we're not necessarily here to sell a product or anything.
No,
We're
it's a
starting
really
an
cool
open
thought
source.
experiment.
Yeah, we're starting an open source project properly.
Mhm.
We're doing what Voron did years ago, which is, you know, they came out with the Voron, and then kits started being made, and then once it got in the hands of everybody, then the community ballooned, and the printers got better, and they were able to be worked on, and all these things. So we're copying Voron's homework, and from what I can tell, they're happy to hear that, because we all love open source projects like this. And that's what I'm excited for. I'm so excited to see what people do with this, because I know people are going to have fun with whatever it is they decide to do with this.
So what are some of the current challenges that are being faced? Right. So I knew about the IR bed leveling. That is a current challenge that for the initial kits was something that it works good enough, but it could definitely be better. So you said, all right, let's ship it with the kits, and then let's provide value to the users via motherboard or toolhead based GPIO stuff where they're able to add their own probe, right?
Yeah.
But what else are we looking at?
Well, and to expand upon that real quick, so we're not just saying, you know, here's the pins, go have fun.
Mm-hmm.
We're also going to rudimentarily design something that will work for it. Because, look, I want to put on a bed probe myself. I want to do that to my machine. So we're going to work on a design and release it so people aren't sitting there, you know, with just nothing and they have to do it from scratch.
Right.
There's at least going to be a jumping off point that we provide so people who aren't necessarily CAD oriented can upgrade their printer with the fairly easy upgrade to do. So, you know, that's why, like, even though batch 1 won't have pins on the toolhead, it has the pins inside the base of the printer, so it'll still work. People can still do that mod, and that will work just fine. And we're not making any new motherboard for any specific batch, at least for the main board. So everyone's going to have the same main board. All those pins are still going to be there. So if you want to add on your own sensors, you can. If you want to add more fans, you can. There's extra headers. We left space intentionally for that. We also made sure to put fuses on pretty much everything that uses power. So, you know, God forbid you do blow out a fuse or you overheat something.
Fuses are
you
cheap.
Could easily just,
MOSFETs are not.
Yeah.
Well,
you could easily just put on a new fuse and don't have to worry about replacing the whole board.
Yep.
And we also made sure the board was easy to access. You just have to take off one top panel and the whole board is right there. You can just access the whole thing, no problem. So that's one of the things that we're working on, you know, the IR probe not being reliable to today's standard. The other thing is we're working on, we noticed there's a small problem with heat creep. And this is, of course, is just by the design of what we have.
Yeah.
So in our newer hot end, we found if you have the fan at 0.7% speed, it does heat creep a bit. So now the fan's on full tilt. We're working on cooling in general because we're not getting the best cooling performance.
Okay.
When we're printing our benchies, they're kind of the bowels curling up a bit halfway through the print.
It is what it is.
Good enough for whatever it is you need.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be a reliable print. But we're going before release, we're actually changing the duct on that fan to be more efficient for cooling performance. We're going to make sure that it is a good machine.
Right.
And we're excited for that. We're working currently on software bugs, on getting this thing to print as reliably and as fast as it can. We didn't design this to be a fast printer. So there's going to be limitations. Right now, with very basic tuning, I've been able to print benchies reliably at 1 hour, which, that's not a common thing anymore, because we're so used to 30-minute benchies or, sub 15-minute benchies. We realistically are able to. We just have to tune it in. I think Positron LT team have been able to get sub 15-minute benchies out of their machines.
And
So,
I guess it's not meant to be a speed demon though. It's the rigidity just isn't there.
yeah,
Right?
but
I mean it's
the
rigid, but the
lightweightness-
bed could be better.
No, the bed is pretty rigid, actually.
Really, even though it's cantilevered.
Yeah. Obviously, you're gonna have if you press up on it,
Yeah.
there's gonna be things. But we upgraded. I think it's to an 18 millimeter rail
Okay.
on the Z
It
axis.
is it's a clipper printer, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fully clipper, so fully customizable. So we have I believe, 18 millimeter rail on the Z axis. I have to double check that. I don't
That's a
remember
thick
the
boy.
exact width.
Yeah.
And we made sure that it's geared for a very high tolerance, so that there's no my brain just mixed up wibble and wobble. So there's no wiggle in the gantry there.
Well, weebles wobble, but
And-
they don't fall down. We all know this. This is
Yeah.
common knowledge.
The other thing that we did is one of the hinge points where you actually screw the bed holder onto the carriage.
Yeah.
We added extreme knurling, so it's literally a zigzag of a metal cut,
Okay.
so that the two pieces slot together and they can't move. They're just locked in together.
Mm-hmm.
So we removed pretty much every little spot where there would be some wiggle room, so that this could print rigid, sturdy, and reliably.
Nice.
Yeah.
Mandic confirmed it is 18 millimeter.
Thank you, Mandic.
Mhm.
Yeah, he measured it for me yesterday, and I was like, oh, cool.
Samuel Miller is asking if Positron is going to be at TCT or Smurf 24. I have a feeling someone's going to bring a Positron to Smurf, but I don't know if you have concrete plans at this time.
I can't say that I will be.
Mhm.
I can say that I'm going to try and be, but it really depends on how successful the printer is.
Right.
So, for full transparency, Positron it's similar to Voron. We are not a nonprofit,
Mm-hmm.
because people will donate, people will, there is a kickback from sales, but most of this money is just going back to paying for more materials for R&D, going back to paying for our servers, going back to paying for people to go to these events, the hotel rooms and whatnot. That stuff's really expensive and it stacks on quickly.
Yep.
So we're going to be giving back as much as we possibly can to the community, to the volunteers, to offset these costs that would normally be incurred. But we're not out here to get rich. I have a day job that pays very well, and I don't necessarily intend on quitting that job, because I like it. I like my job. I like doing IT work, and I'm able to live comfortably. So, and Kraylin is the same way. We don't need profit from this.
It's good
we
to
want to
have
use it.
it because it
It's good,
affords
yes.
future research and development. But the nice thing is, if you don't have to rely on it, you focus more on getting a good product with the right stuff out there, rather than we need to get it out and make money. So you don't end up with 37 of the exact same thing with basically the same name that makes it difficult for people to think. I guess I'm referencing some company. Maybe you all will.
Yeah,
Weird,
very
weird how that works.
very
sometimes.
referring to reality there.
It is very real.
Yeah.
It's Mandic reality. That's what it is.
How dare you?
No. I'd be
Yeah,
Mandic really, but still funny. How to take the
we're
job.
very happy to be able to just be able to focus on
Yeah.
the passion of this. And
As soon as it becomes a business, it is no longer fun. Promise.
exactly.
Promise.
I've done that before. So my first year of 3D printing, I made my own little brand, Nomad's Galaxy, and I was selling printer mods. And specifically for the FL Sun Super Racer,
Mhm.
I was selling a kit for a Revo upgrade. Now, it was fully open source. People could just download the kit and do it themselves, but for those that didn't want to do that, I was selling a little kit. And I just didn't want to do that anymore. After assembling the kits for a year, I was tired of it. I just took it down. I didn't want to do it. It actually turned me away from 3D printing for a few months where I just didn't want to print anything. And that really sucked. I
Yeah.
didn't like that
Yeah.
because
it
I love
can be
printing.
rough.
I love working on projects.
Like I still find myself kind of in and out of really enjoying this because it is a business for me, right? The
Yeah.
making parts for people is a business, but every now and then, man, I get to do like a personal project or something that Amber wants, and it's like this is fun because I'm solving a problem. And then that passion comes back for a bit. Anytime that we go and do shows, like right before Rocky Mountain, we did a career day at the local high school. That was a ton of fun. It's only when you tell people the value of the stuff on the table that they're like, oh, I don't want to touch it. I'm like, you were totally fine touching it when you didn't know it was $35,000. But now all of a sudden you know what it's worth. You don't want to touch it. Pick it up and use it. I want you to experience this because chances are you're never going to experience this again unless you work with a company that gives you that kind of access. And that stuff is what kind of gets me moving because I like inspiring others. And like, that's kind of why YouTube works out because it's not really, I mean, it is a job. It doesn't pay me, but it pays other people, right? There are people that rely on this channel for money. And, I love it because it's a passion and I hope that it never changes,
Yeah. I'm excited because so many people came up to us at Rocky Mountain and said just how much that this printer was inspiring them.
Mm-hmm.
And I am very much someone that doesn't like to say that, oh, I am this or that, because I believe it is my peers to say that I am this or I am that. I've been told that I am very humble when it comes to the Positron as a whole. Like, people were telling me that people were talking about this thing from across the hall. And me and my little bubble, I'm like, wait, people are talking about this thing beyond our booth? What? No, that's not happening.
That's called imposter syndrome. I'm not entirely certain that's humble. I think that's more of just you thinking it's not as valuable as it is.
When it comes to the Positron, I 100% have imposter syndrome. I've
talked
put
about
2
this on
years
the stream before.
I actually did watch that clip.
Nick
I put 2
Angers.
years into this, and we've almost sold out of batch 1 in the United States. I think KB3D
Barely
has
certain
only
it's fully sold out.
Has KB3D sold out?
I'll check right now, because why the hell not? I thought they did.
I think they only have a very small number. I was told that it would likely be sold out within the next 48 hours.
Oh, it is still there. Batch 1 is still available.
We released this May 1st.
Yeah.
I cannot wrap my head around the fact that it is already at the point it is. That we have sold almost our entire first batch of 200 units already.
That's a good problem to have.
It is a great problem to have. But yeah, I have really bad imposter syndrome because up until I actually started really networking in the community and before I joined your server, because of events that happened during the development of Positron as a whole was very secluded. We were very close to each other because we actually had a very interesting situation happen. I'm not going to say
no need to get into it.
Let this happen, but no, this is a fun story.
Okay.
So during the early days, we were looking for testers to become part of the beta testing team. And it wasn't massively public, but it was like if someone inquired, we would talk to them and figure it out. And we had a very small handful of people that were accepting, these beta testers into the program. So what happened was someone got in, and at first, they had a good resume talking about how they were very proficient with 3D printing, and I was like, all right, cool. We will take your word for it, and we did. We spent over, I want to say, 100 hours helping that individual with this printer. And it was like, oh,
Are you like
how do I
predicting the
flash?
future for me? I don't know.
I hope not, because they were asking how to flash an SD card.
I can do
And
that. I can do that.
so this person's like, oh yeah, I've built Vorons before, and it's like, they just said, oh, I've built printers before. They never said Voron specifically. And it's like, well, then don't you know how to flash an SD card? Things were very suspicious. And after some digging, we found out it's a 16-year-old kid, which I am glad that, kids
Lesson
and
learned.
teenagers are really, really interested in 3D printing. I want to encourage that. But please, if there are any kids or, young adults listening to this, don't lie to get into a beta unit. Don't waste people's time.
Yep.
That's inevitably what ended up happening. And as a result of that, we just closed off entirely. We decided to keep things internal, and we didn't want to share anything.
Yeah, that's no fun.
With
One
a
bad
team
apple
of
ruins it
roughly-
for everybody.
Yeah. And with a team of roughly 8 people, and that's an estimate. I don't actually have the exact number of how many testers we had, because I never bothered to really double check. But it was a small team, very small. With a team of roughly 8 people, we don't have all of the skills that a team making a printer like this would necessarily need. One of the skills that we lacked was profile tuning. We didn't really know how to properly tune a printer to the best of its ability. And I will say, about 4 months ago, I had zero hope in what we were doing, because my printer just wasn't printing good. It had a ton of artifacts and lines on it that I just wasn't happy with. And I was genuinely frightened for the day that we would come to market, because I was scared that it was not going to be good. Coming into the community, talking with people again, and reopening myself up to everybody has taught me 2 very important things. One, there's some really, really intelligent people out there. Justin, Breakcore3D, has helped us tune this machine so much. And he's actually now part of the team. He's helping us tune it even further because of his insanely valuable skills. So we can say, hey, when we go to release this, we're going to have, or at least we're trying to have an official profile in Orca Slicer already in there.
That would be nice.
So that people can just download Orca Slicer and start using it. And in fact, you released a short, I think literally either today or yesterday, talking about how companies will often take these open source slicers and just rebrand it as their own. I've had people come up to me and ask, why haven't you done that? Well, I don't want to. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I'm not a software developer. I'm not someone who knows how to precisely tune these printers. I would like that to stay in the hands of the people who develop the software, like Orca Slicer, because they know their software the best. I'm not going to be updating that software as fast as they can, so I'm not going to do that. But we're working with Justin, we're working with the community, we're making this printer better. As a result, I have this passion reared back into me, and I have this hope and aspiration. And one of my biggest fears before Rocky Mountain was there are some of these glaring problems, the IR sensor being that one.
Yeah.
And I was terrified that, for example, the Soval. When the Soval came out, the SV8 didn't come out so good.
Right.
And the response to it was pretty negative. And being someone who's about to come to the market, that haunted
You're like,
me.
See, the difference is though, they're a company that has experience. You're not, and that's
Exactly.
okay. Real
So-
quick, I do want to give a thank you to T Dubs for the 5 gifted memberships. Doom, Dougal, Kenneth, Collie, and TJ got one. Thank you, T Dubs. Greatly appreciated. Sorry, gotta
It's
thank
alright.
the people that help make this stuff possible.
Exactly. No, and I have to thank Justin as well because he actually made the trip out to Rocky Mountain possible. He sponsored my flight out, and it is because of Rocky Mountain that I was able to reframe my mind. I am not a $1 million company. My team is not paid to be this massive R&D team and development team. We're volunteers that all have day jobs that we just enjoy working on this in our free time.
As I've said before, you're
And-
running a very successful nonprofit.
Exactly.
Or not
So-
for profit would be more accurate, because there are some designation differences between those.
Yeah, and we don't have those designations.
No, you don't.
Designations. So it reframed my mind to realize I don't need to be afraid. People really are interested in this printer, and it's
We just
similar
think it's
to
cool,
when
dude.
you have someone you love. You love them for all the great things that they have and all their flaws too. So this printer isn't perfect.
No.
But it's going to be your printer. It's going to be the printer you can customize and bring with you.
Yep.
And that being in the community has really relit that passion for me. And I'm so thankful for it.
Good.
Because it has brought a new light into my life and has really brought me up.
Well, that's what this community is all about. We've talked about the power of community before and how a lot of makers will just kind of head down work all the time. In fact, the meeting that I had before hanging out with you live was with a maker company kind of thing, and they were just talking about how we've been keeping our heads down. I said, well, why? The community needs to know what you guys are going through. I understand that it seems monotonous, boring, and stupid to you, but there is actual value that the community is going to get out of this kind of thing. And
Yeah.
even if that's you just show them all the effort, money, and energy that's going into validating exactly what you're doing, great. Show them. Tell them. Do that kind of stuff with them, because that's what matters. In fact, they will likely be podcast guests at some time in the near future. So if you want to see a really cool unnamed company come on the podcast and talk about what it's like doing what you're doing, like building a printer from scratch, but doing as close to vertical integration as you could get, let me know. But that's the kind of stuff that I look at and say, yes, it is tough to try to be a member of a community, try to have a day job, and try to build a product at the same time. It's why, we've slowed down on a lot of our production of internal stuff, right? Like the Politician is all but dead at this point. And the Making Awesome Academy is barely holding on because I'm spending more time doing other things. And part of that is just being a part of the community and being involved with it. So I get it. And not many people understand the time commitment required for this. You, sir, have been very busy since we first met, and I can only imagine that was worse quite some time ago. It peaked right near the launch, I'm sure, but you didn't just go on a 3-week Caribbean cruise. You're still boots on ground making stuff happen, and that's a big deal.
And it also goes to show just how much other aspects of your life can absorb that time.
Oh, yeah.
So I had a recent life event that I won't get into that happened that opened up a lot of time to me. And that really allowed me to be able to sit in a Discord call for a few hours on the weekend and really make these network connections and make these friends.
Get invited to
And
a multi-hour live stream. Yeah, I get
yeah.
it.
Or someone invite you to come out to a festival and then sponsor you and just change your life. It really just takes a little bit of effort sometimes. A lot of people say that, oh, I don't have the time for this. I can't do that. I don't have the time. Make the time. If you don't make the time for the things you want to do, you'll never be able to do them. If you keep using being busy as an excuse, then you're always going to be busy with stuff that you don't necessarily want to do.
It is
Sit
easy
down.
to be busy. And I
It
have
is so easy.
certainly used that to my advantage, like to get out of going to social things. I'm like, I've got work. That
Yeah.
work might be I've worked 3 days prior, 18 to 20-hour days, and I just want to go to sleep early, and I don't want to be social.
Yeah.
And like Mr. M and Don reminded me, his name is Don, says, I think I want Grant's shirt. Would be better with the HR manager image, though. I will give you the shirt off my back, but that's not that kind of show. Literally, t-shirts have been something that's kind of fallen to the wayside for me because we get busy. Merch coming soon, TM. I've said it. We have some new designs actually, and I have narrowed down to 2 companies. They're both going to get a substantial order, and I'm going to abuse the clothing from both of those companies. We're going to see which one stands. Winner takes all. So I probably have another $1,000 of like real world cash to spend before I'm comfortable selling shirts, because we want, like, similar to how you were thinking that you weren't going to have a good slicer setup. You found the right ways to make that happen. I don't want to sell a shirt that's going to get destroyed in, half a dozen washes. So I found a system that works. It's buy some, test it, abuse it, go cut the grass, go change the oil in it, then wash it in hot water and see what happens, right? Because you have to assume that people are going to do crazy things. And it's only because of our community, people like Mr. M and Don and all the other awesome people that are hanging out on our Discord server, $10 tier and higher. Yes, I turned this into a CTA. You're welcome. Are able to constantly remind me of the fact that I'm behind on everything, including life. But hey, that's the way things go sometimes. I can't be like the buddy I went to college with who just bought his second Lamborghini because he had a kid, and clearly he needs an Urus now. I mean, look, amazing guy, love him, great friend, but yeah, different life trajectories for sure.
Yeah, so, you got to make the time because, for example, with those t-shirts, you could easily just order it from some dropship company. You don't have to deal with the warehousing. You don't have to deal with the shipping. You don't have to deal with any of that.
I'm not going to be doing that. We're going to do print on demand.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
that is an option. But, there is the effort you can take to be like, all right, let me actually get samples of this. Let me actually take the time to make sure this is the quality I want it to be.
Yep.
That little bit of effort can go such a long way to ensure that what you are doing is what you want to be doing.
And like, so you guys chose LDO to be your main vendor, right? They're the ones that kind of provide the kits and all of that, and then it goes to the resellers. So similar.
Well,
okay, maybe not.
Well,
LDO's making the kits.
Yes, we chose LDO, but LDO was the only ones that were crazy enough to actually go to make kits for this.
But you still decided to do that. So
yes,
work with me. I need that yes to move forward. So like, this shirt is from Custom Cat. I loved their printing quality. So I spent $500 to buy kind of one of everything that I think that we would sell. And the quality, do I have one? I don't have it handy. The quality of the printing that they sent me, the colors were so washed out. And when I asked them, hey, what's going on? They said, oh, this is the new color. I'm like, why? So, all right, why was I not alerted that you, like, I've been a customer of yours for like 6 months now. Why was I not alerted to that you're changing your colors and that I need to do something? They said, oh, you can't do anything. All of your colors are going to look like this. I'm like, but this looks good. What they gave me didn't look good. And I said, I'm sorry. One, I need a refund, which I never got, by the way. That was fun. And then 2, I can't do business with you guys because I can't risk all of the sudden a supplier completely changing something without me knowing it. Had we gone and started selling these, people would have gotten something that looked like it was washed out, and there would have been complaints and returns and all of that. And so by choosing a supplier that you can rely on, even if they're the only one, it's still one that you can rely on. You produce a better working relationship, not only with the manufacturers, right? Because LDO effectively handles a lot of that BS that you would have to do otherwise, but they're a trusted partner within this industry. So, like, Positron doesn't have a name slated into this industry yet. LDO does. And so you're saying LDO believes in us, you should too. And you know what? It works great.
Oh yeah, Jason's been absolutely obsessed with this printer.
Who is
and
it? It's freaking cool. I don't understand a lot of it because it makes your brain just kind of tickle a little bit, and you're like, how does this work? Why does this work? It shouldn't work, and yet
my
it
favorite
does.
thing is to go on what was it, the Maker stream with all the 3D printers and just stream my printer.
Maker Deck, yeah.
Maker Deck, yes, and everyone's just like, wait, what? Hold on a second.
Yep.
That's not the right way around.
Yep.
And I like to, I'm going to start putting something that dangles in the background, just slowly swaying, to remind people this is the right way around.
Just put a clock with a pendulum on it.
Yeah. So I'm going to do something funny like that. But LDO has been absolutely critical to us being any form of successful. So because we have such a small team, we don't, again, our skill sets are very limited in the pool that we have, and full-on CAD experience is one of those parts that kind of was lacking a bit. When Kraylin stepped away, Kraylin was our lead engineer.
Right.
And he's a consultant. He's still kind of part of the project. He's just a consultant because of that is the agreement he made with his employer to be able to continue on the project. So he's not allowed to work on the CAD as a result. We can show him pictures like, does this look right? And all he can do is like, yeah, that looks right. Or no, that doesn't look right. Maybe try this, but he can't touch the files.
Yep. Welcome to contracts, people.
Yeah. So LDO and their team, Dave and them, they have helped us by doing the CAD work for us.
LDO goes above and beyond. They're not just, a company that will do sourcing and supplying and all of that. The value that LDO provides to this industry is woefully misunderstood and
100%.
Jason is like a bastion for the way things should be done, and a phenomenal way to look at this and say, dude, we're making like actual progress and difference. Because attempt to vertically integrate, you're pretty much guaranteed to fail. Vertical integration is very difficult, and if you don't have the money to support it, you need production partners like LDO. So that's great to have.
And I mean, there's discussion on like the future of what we do, and maybe we do something along like Cocoa Press where we somewhat vertically integrate. We don't want to do full vertical integration. That is if we want this to become more of a job. Right now, we are completely happy.
It's a
with
great
what
system
we have.
that you have right now. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth, I think is what the hell they say. That's a terrible saying. I don't know why people say it, but yeah,
I know the reason why they say it. I can share it later.
Okay. Well, either way, I think that you have a great gift with LDO, and now it's a reality. Kits are sold out basically everywhere for the first rev. Except for maybe a few with KB3D, right?
Yeah.
And that's a monumental deal. The sigh of relief that I can only imagine when the first reseller sold out, you're like, oh God, it's real. It's like, okay, it didn't fail. Crap, it didn't fail. I have a bunch of more work to do.
Exactly.
It's a blessing and a curse, dude.
It was a sigh of relief and then a sigh of panic.
Yeah, success. It's what a lot of companies that go on a Kickstarter don't realize, that success can actually be a detriment if you don't plan correctly. But having production partners like LDO that can help make these kits a reality, get as close as you're going to get to ensuring success when success starts knocking at the door.
And I will say, like, one thing, I sent you a snapshot earlier today. So, like, one of the things that this put a fire under me is, our documentation needs to be worked on. And it's not great right now. We had a wiki that was okay. It was weird. The way it was every page was in a book. And every book was on a shelf. And that was neat because, like, okay, I can have a shelf for Positron and a shelf for like
Mhm.
Positron LT and one for Durant. Like, I could kind of like I could be flexible with this,
Yep.
but it was weird. It just wasn't intuitive to look around the site. So we only just like literally, I think 2 days ago, we got our new wiki up and running, and we started populating it, started working on it. And being in IT and having worked on these systems before today, I'm like, all right, I got to work on it this morning. I got to go in there, and we're now in production. We're now live, and like we don't have a backup system for the server. Let me put one in real quick. And so today at 9 o'clock, I enabled a backup system that would back up our files to GitHub. So the whole entirety of the wiki is not just hosted on our servers, but it's on GitHub. So anybody could theoretically clone it and, you know, still be open source, still access the files on it. I nuked the server somehow. Uh, and I was messaging my server team, and I was panicking. I was in full panic mode, like, guys, the server's gone, guys.
Been
And
there.
well,
Been there, done that.
I brought it back. I somehow recovered everything, and it's working again. But it is definitely a fun experience when it's like, oh, people are buying this now. Oh, people are buying this now. Okay, all eyes are on me, and I gotta actually get things going here.
Yep.
And when you start running without having things planned out, you're gonna trip.
Mhm.
Today I tripped a bit, but I got back up
That's
and I
life.
kept running.
That's life.
You know, you get dirt on your knees, you get some grass stains in your clothes, that's fine. You get back up and you just keep going.
Yep.
You learn from the mistakes you make and you try not to make them again. Can't promise that you'll never make them again, but you got to just get back up and you got to keep going.
Yep. Yep. That's a big part of all of this, is making sure that that's not going to be a major issue, and understanding that knowing how to get to market is as much knowing how to throw a punch as it is taking one. And in fact, it's more of learning how to take a punch than it is throwing one.
I mean, I think we can look at the A1, for example, from Bamboo.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good printer. I have one myself with the old bed, and that was definitely a bit of a blunder. Bamboo has, from what I understand, done what they can. They have also made some choices that aren't necessarily the best choices.
You mean by blaming the users? Yeah.
Yes.
No,
that,
see,
that was not good.
out of all the examples you could choose, this is not one that's gonna go well with me. But I'll let you go on this.
No. I'm not using them as an example of a good example. They are just an example of a lesson to be learned.
Well, that's an example
What
of what
they
happens when
probably
you don't
should
do
have done.
adequate product testing,
Exactly.
and then
And what they
promise
should have
things that are
done-
illegal.
Yeah, they should have just done a full recall
Yep.
of this and had it done in house. They allowed for people to do the repair themselves, which is not good.
No,
On machines,
in fact, it's
like-
illegal in most places.
yeah, on machines like Voron's, where you assemble the printer, that's fine.
Yep.
At least I think it's fine. Correct me if I'm wrong, please do, because I am not a bastion of everything correct.
It actually has the same basic rules, but because you are building the kit yourself, you're assuming those risks, right?
Exactly.
Because Voron is not a company, right? Same way that Positron isn't a company, there are not risks associated with it that I'm aware of from a manufacturer standpoint. Because Bamboo is not only a company, but they have a nexus in the United States now. They have a nexus in Austin, Texas, a location in Austin, Texas. And they sold a product in retail environment. They were required to go down this route. They didn't have a choice. But now they've gotten the attention of some of these consumer protection services. And they've had a field day learning regulatory stuff that any basic attorney could have told them years ago was going to be a concern. But I digress.
So there's lessons to be learned in everything.
For sure.
I hope Bamboo's learned their lesson through this.
I have a feeling that
We
their
don't know yet.
pocketbook has learned the lesson for them. Yes.
Apparently the stream dropped for a moment there.
There's nothing I can do about it. We've lost over 5% of this stream to lost frames. There's nothing I can
To
do.
catch you guys
That's
up,
why we always do
we
a local recording.
we just discussed the whole Bamboo A1 situation as an example of things that can go wrong. So I hope that Bamboo will learn from this mistake and won't repeat it. That's the important part. To not repeat mistakes. Because if you make a mistake and then you don't care about it and you do it again,
yep,
that's a problem. There is a company that made a belt printer. And this is not one of the more colloquially known belt printers, that's what I'll say. And that printer nearly burnt my house down because it did not have it had thermal runaway protection disabled.
Is it the one that I'm thinking of?
I don't know if it is.
I'm gonna DM you on Discord because now I'm curious.
Yeah. So it uses a duet board, and duet boards come with thermal runaway protections enabled by default. This one, it froze. It didn't turn off its heater, and it melted a hole through the bed. That's terrifying. And I convinced them to release their firmware to be open source. I convinced them to make everything pretty much open source for for this printer so that this could be prevented. Will it be prevented? I don't know. I don't think they are in the market for making printers anymore.
No.
I think they just make modifications. Which good.
Making end products is way tougher, right? It is. And dude, and it's a thing that we discussed when I first learned that you were the general manager of Positron. I said, one of your biggest challenges, post-release, customer support, and technical support. Because you can make a great product, but the world makes people like me that have no idea what they're doing 99.9% of the time. And every now and then, twice a day a clock is right. So I'd like to believe at least twice a day I get something that goes in the right direction. And while yes, I'm clearly better than, twice a day, I still struggle with basic things like Clipper. I'm a Clipper idiot. I'm a Voron moron, if you will. And I've had an uphill battle with that. And so it can be tough, but having a good community to help out with that is a big deal.
So that's one of the nice things about working with LDO on this and not having self-sourced things yet. We're going to eventually have that.
Yeah.
But we are actually starting from a more standardized system. Mm-hmm. So rather than the guide walking you through how to flash a Pi and how to install Clipper, we can just do that. Yeah. Like we can have an image that you just image this to the SD card, and then that's it. That's all you have to do. It has everything already there, which makes the whole process so much easier for end users. So we're working with LDO to integrate a lot of these steps that would be complicated. Like, for example, our beta kits came with these hot ends, not this one specifically, but with the hot ends that are in the current system disassembled. You had to put the hot end in, you had to put it in the heat break, you had to screw it, you had to put in the thermistor, you had to put in everything, you had to do the whole thing. In the production version, it's all done for you. So you have all the wires already run, you already have everything applied. All you have to do is install the hot end assembly into the tool head, and you're good to go. And we're trying to make this a very easy build. I think right now, we did some more testing. We think you can build one in 10 hours. And a decent amount of that is just prep work.
Yeah.
Is just, doing the heat set inserts, etc.
That's the fun part.
It is. So this printer is fairly easy to build because you're not running complicated wire lines.
It's all right there at the bottom of the printer where it doesn't make sense for it to be, but fine. It's all at the bottom of the printer.
It is strangely easy to build. The most complicated thing is the belt path, but We provide the CAD for the belt path so people can actually look at it and understand it. Um, I have only built one Voron 2.4, and I probably have maybe 200 hours printing on that thing.
Yeah.
Because I don't it I like to throw stuff at it and see what happens. I like to break that printer. I haven't run many belt paths, but running that Positron kinematic HBot system was easy. Because once you understand how that cable wraps around, it just makes sense. And it's easy to be repeatable, it's easy to fix, it's strangely intuitive. And that's what I think I like about as a consumer, what I like about the Positron, it's
Totally unbiased, by the way.
Yeah, totally unbiased. I am my own critic, and I will
That's
always
okay.
point out flaws
That's okay.
in designs. But yeah, it's strangely easy to use. I've always told people, don't let this be your first printer build, because the complexity at first was complex, but now that we're not using synchromesh, now that we're using,
It should be a lot easier. Yeah.
it is so much easier. In fact, it's so easy that I've started to say, or I've stopped saying that you should build another printer first. This absolutely could be someone's first printer build with no problems. The original V3, oh heck no, that is far too complicated.
Mm-hmm.
But the 3.2, no, I think this might be a great first time printer.
Well, I'll be curious. We're going to be building one at some point. I don't know when. I'm going to wait a little bit. So I believe that we're going to see some great mods come out of the community. And, well, I don't feel like doing all the work to put something together and then realize it is missing something that could make my life a little bit better. So I'm going to wait a little bit. And what we want to do is we want to make it look super freaking cool. I want to make one that just looks different, like the one that was Pusheen based. I thought that one was just the Positron.
Love it.
Beautiful.
I love that
and like
one.
truly a great idea and way to make this look. So I like that. I want to do something crazy like that too. I like fun builds like that. It is enjoyable to me. But yeah, dude, it's a cool project. I like the idea of printing upside down. I like the idea of hyper portability. I think all of that provides a new perspective for 3D printing for people. And of course, that Positron is a guaranteed show printer for me, like when we go places, because it's just that different. It is different enough that it is so damn cool that you just, like, if you're going to go somewhere and say, hey, bring a printer, I'd love to see how they work, that's the one you bring, right? Because it is that different and it is that cool that it will garner attention and a crowd solely because of the fact that it is functioning.
Yeah, and that's why I like breaking the mold of what has become the standard.
Yep.
You know, we've seen so many Core XY clones, we've seen so many, Ender clones. It's become where, like, the deltas are where there's some innovation. There's the weird ones that have the circular bed that rotate. That's new.
Polar?
Or not new. The Polar has been around for a while, but
Polar's
that's cool.
been around for a minute.
Um,
Look at a Scara printer.
Yeah.
Scaras use the arm like Rob from Nintendo. They go like this. Yeah, it's a Scara printer.
I think it's really cool what people are starting to do, because we've gotten into this lull of printers being so monotonous and similar that the creativity in the hardware has been boring for a while.
Yep.
One of my highlights as part of this project is East Coast Rep 2022. We brought our V3, and at the time, what was going to be production LDO kits for the V3. And towards the end of the day, of the first day, Joseph Prusso came up to the booth, and he just looked at the machine. And Kraylin was actually there. I'm not allowed to share his photo, but Kraylin was there. And Joseph Crusoe was just sitting there looking at this machine, moving the belts and like seeing how it works. And he said, "This reminds me of when printers were fun." And that melted my heart. I saw
You
Kraylin just,
fanboyed.
like,
You got a little fanboy
oh,
moment.
I 100% fanboyed.
I don't
saw
blame you. Though. I
Kraylin-
mean, that's an honor. The next greatest honor you can get is Adrian Boyer to say the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Kraylin was like filled with emotion. He didn't really show it. I joke with Kraylin a ton, and he is absolute geeky nerd, very introverted. We love him.
We're all a little
that's
introverted
why,
for the most part, man. It's life.
that's why I'm the general manager. I'm the one that can do all the talking for him. But it's been fun. It's just been one hell of a wild ride, and I can't wait to do this again when we do inevitably design the next one. But
what I think would be cool is to kind of check in with you maybe 6 months to a year from now, and we'd look at kind of how the product has changed and what's different between then and now, right?
Yeah.
And see how things have changed throughout the course, how the project has changed. So we can certainly look at doing something like that, maybe same time next year kind of deal. But
yeah,
it
is very rare that an open source company comes out and just starts its journey like this.
Incredibly rare.
Again, I think the last one to really do it was Voron.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. And they're not a company. Neither are you.
Right.
But I also think that's just a dumb designation, but I understand it. Nonetheless, dude, Nomad, this has been an absolute pleasure. I've enjoyed it, but we are coming to the end here, and we got to send these people to go hang out with Mr. Steve Build. So do you have any parting words about the trials, tribulations, and just general tomfoolery that it takes to get a 3D printer that not only fits in a filament box, but also prints upside down?
When you go to do something different if you can.
Mm-hmm.
Think outside the box, even if outside the box ends up being within the box. Be able to laugh at yourself. Don't take things too seriously. Have fun with what you do, and pursue those dreams.
Man, this is like, why do half of my shows end up being like, motivation sessions? I don't understand it. Whatever, man. If it works, it works. That's all that we care about. Do you know my outro? Because I'll let you do it.
I'm going to just
try it. You have
try
been a fan of the channel, you son of a gun. You pay to be in our Discord.
Don't forget to call your loved ones. Don't forget to call your loved ones.
Come on! What's the name of the show?
Don't forget to call your loved ones. Don't forget to be awesome. And...
No! What's the name of the podcast? What's the name?
Yes, the trill has commenced.
Oh my gosh, this has been episode 185 of the Making Awesome podcast. Stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. And as always,
keep making awesome.
Have a good one.